My son Alex was never one for sports. He preferred coding and video games to dribbling a basketball. So when at 14 years old, he suddenly became obsessed with basketball practice, it immediately raised my eyebrows. 2 weeks prior, he'd feigned a stomach bug to avoid tryouts. Now he was waking up at 5:30 a.m. to practice free throws. "What's with the sudden dedication, bud?" I asked one morning, watching him lace up his brand new high tops. He shrugged, a nervous energy about him. "Coach Miller is just different. His practices are really engaging." I smiled, relieved. Maybe this was a good thing, a way for him to find some balance. I didn't give it another thought until a few weeks later when Alex started meticulously planning his outfits for school, particularly on practice days. He'd spend an hour in front of his closet, something utterly uncharacteristic for a boy whose usual fashion statement was a faded graphic tee. I once teased him about trying to impress a girl, and he practically exploded, his face turning a furious red. "Mom, don't even joke about that." That's when a knot started forming in my stomach. I began to observe him more closely. His mood seemed entirely dependent on interactions with Coach Miller. If Coach Miller praised a play, Alex would be ecstatic, bouncing around the house. But if Coach Miller was distant or critical, Alex would retreat into himself, barely speaking, picking at his food during dinner. I decided to test the waters. "You know, Alex," I began, my voice deliberately casual, "I was thinking of finding you a new coach. Maybe someone who focuses more on individual skill development." He froze, his spoon clattering against his cereal bowl. "Why?" he whispered, his eyes wide with a fear I couldn't comprehend. When I pressed him, he just shook his head, pushing away from the table and hurrying to his room, phone already in hand, frantically typing. My mind raced. This wasn't my Alex. He was usually an open book. This sudden secrecy, combined with his mood swings, screamed alarm. That night, fueled by a terrible premonition, I did something I never thought I would. I snuck into his room and searched his phone. I knew it was a violation, but my gut told me he was in trouble. I sifted through his messages, his social media, finding nothing out of the ordinary. Then I remembered an old, rarely used email account he'd set up years ago for a school project. I logged in, my heart hammering against my ribs, and there it was, an email chain with Coach Miller. The last message from the coach read, "Looking forward to our extra session after practice tomorrow, champ." My hand started shaking as I opened the thread. What I read made me want to scream. Coach Miller was telling my 14-year-old son that he was exceptionally talented, unlike any other student he'd coached, and that their connection was beyond the court. He was sending Alex links to expensive gaming equipment and limited edition sneakers, telling him they were rewards for his dedication. Alex's replies indicated he was hiding these gifts in his gym bag. I crept to Alex's gym bag, pulling out pristine unreleased gaming headphones, a high-end gaming mouse, and a vintage basketball jersey. All clearly far beyond what a coach would typically give a student. The rage and disgust that surged through me were overwhelming. My son was being groomed. I immediately took photos of everything with my phone, documenting the gifts and backing up the email exchanges to multiple cloud services. My first instinct was to call the police, the school, anyone. But then I remembered. Coach Miller wasn't just any coach. His father was a prominent judge in our city, a major donor to the school. His brother was a high-ranking official in the school district, often seen at PTA meetings. His wife ran a local youth sports charity. If I went to the authorities directly, I feared they'd discredit me, dismiss my claims, and bury the truth. So I decided to play their game. I pretended everything was normal. I began volunteering at the school library, giving me a strategic vantage point to observe Coach Miller's interactions with Alex and other students. I continued to photograph the gifts, archiving every piece of digital evidence. I started watching documentaries with Alex about online safety and predator behavior, subtly discussing news stories where adults had exploited children. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He'd squirm, fidget, and bite his nails, often excusing himself from the room. He was starting to see the truth. The progress we were making was brutally interrupted on a Tuesday, the worst day of my life. Alex came home early from school, claiming he felt ill. He bolted for the bathroom and stayed there for over an hour. I heard him retching, then sobbing uncontrollably. Finally, I managed to convince him to unlock the door. He was huddled on the floor, shaking. I picked him up, cradling him, fearing the absolute worst. Between gasps, he choked out the words. He said if I truly respected him, I would. It hurt, Mom, and he wouldn't stop. Then, he pulled away and scrambled for the cabinet under the sink. With trembling hands, he pulled out a home pregnancy test. My blood ran cold as he held it up, showing 2 pink lines. I couldn't breathe. My 14-year-old son was holding a positive pregnancy test, and the man responsible was his coach. The same coach whose father was a judge, whose brother held power in the school district. I grabbed Alex, holding him tightly as he sobbed into my shoulder, his whole body shaking with each breath. I needed to get him to a doctor immediately, but I also needed to be strategic. One wrong move, and Miller's connections would crush us. "Baby, we need to go to urgent care," I whispered, stroking his hair. "I'm going to tell them you have a severe stomach virus. Just follow my lead." Alex nodded weakly against my chest. I helped him to the car, my mind racing through everything I needed to do. The evidence on his phone, the gifts in his bag, the pregnancy test. I grabbed everything and shoved it into my purse. Nothing could be left behind. At urgent care, I filled out the paperwork with shaking hands, while Alex curled up in the waiting room chair, his face pale. When they called us back, I explained Alex's severe abdominal pain and nausea. The nurse took his vitals and left us alone in the exam room. "Mom, what if they tell?" Alex whispered, fresh tears streaming down his face. "Let me handle it, sweetheart. Just tell the doctor your stomach hurts really bad." Dr. Eleanor Vance entered 10 minutes later. She was young, maybe in her early 30s, with kind eyes behind stylish glasses. After examining Alex and running some tests, she pulled me aside while a nurse stayed with my son. "Mrs. Davies, the pregnancy test came back positive," she said quietly. "Given Alex's age, I'm required to file a report with Child Protective Services." "Please," I interrupted, my voice cracking. "Can you give me 24 hours? Just one day to process this shock and figure out how to protect my son?" "The man who did this, his father is a judge. His brother is high up in the school district. If you report this now, they'll make it disappear." Dr. Vance studied my face for a long moment. 24 hours. "But I need you to understand, I will be filing that report, so I'll document everything you can in the meantime." Back home, Alex went straight to bed, exhausted from crying. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, creating encrypted folders and backing up every piece of evidence to multiple cloud services. Then I remembered something from a true crime podcast, recording apps disguised as other programs. I crept into Alex's room while he slept and installed one on his phone, hidden inside what looked like a simple game. If Miller tried to contact him or corner him at school, I'd have proof. The next morning, Alex refused to get out of bed. "I can't see him, Mom. I can't sit in his class and pretend everything's normal." "You don't have to go today," I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "I'll call you in sick." But skipping his class triggered something in Miller. By noon, Alex's phone was buzzing nonstop. I watched the messages roll in on the monitoring app I'd installed. They came from a number I didn't recognize, clearly a burner phone. "Where are you today? I'm worried about you, Alex. Please respond. You know how much I care. Your performance is suffering. You can't afford to miss my sessions. Don't do something you'll regret. Remember what we talked about." The messages shifted from concerned to subtly threatening over the course of hours. I screenshotted everything, my stomach churning with each notification. Alex stayed in his room with covers pulled over his head, trying to block it all out. That evening, I made a decision. "I'm taking time off work," I told Alex over dinner. "He barely touched his food. Family emergency, and I'm going to start volunteering at school." "Mom, no," Alex pleaded. "He'll know something's wrong. He'll what?" I asked gently. "Sweetheart, what is he threatening you with?" Alex pushed his food around his plate. "My grades, my future. He says I need his recommendation for advanced sports programs, that he can make or break my athletic career." The manipulation made me sick. He'd found exactly what mattered to my dedicated son and weaponized it against him. I started volunteering in the main office the next day, filing papers and answering phones. It gave me the perfect vantage point to watch the hallways during Coach Miller's free period. I saw him texting furiously on his phone. Minutes later, Alex appeared in the hallway, walking slowly toward the gym wing. I followed at a distance, my heart pounding. Miller met him by the empty equipment room, glancing around before ushering him inside. I positioned myself where I could see through the door's window. He was showing Alex something on his phone, gesturing emphatically. Alex stood with his arms wrapped around himself, nodding mechanically at whatever Miller said. When he emerged 10 minutes later, his face was pale and drawn. I ducked into a supply closet before Miller could spot me, but I'd seen enough. He was still trying to control him, even now. That night, Alex's best friend Sam called the house phone, something the boys never did anymore. "Mrs. Davies, can I talk to you about Alex? He's scaring me." My heart jumped. "What do you mean, sweetie? He won't tell me what's wrong, but he cries in the locker room between practices, and Coach Miller keeps calling him over to his office during free periods. Last week, I saw him put his hand on Alex's back, and Alex just froze. Sam, would you and your dad be willing to come over tomorrow? I think we need to talk." Mr. Henderson arrived the next afternoon with Sam while Alex was at a doctor's appointment I'd scheduled. I showed them some of the evidence. Not everything, but enough. Mr. Henderson's face went white. "Oh my God," he breathed. "He's been giving Sam special attention too, asking him to stay after practice, commenting on his potential. I thought he was just being encouraging." "Did he ever?" I couldn't finish the question. "No," Mr. Henderson said firmly, but only because Sam always made excuses to leave. He said Miller made him uncomfortable but couldn't explain why. We agreed to work together. Mr. Henderson would document anything Sam witnessed, and we'd coordinate our evidence. Two families were harder to silence than one. But Miller must have sensed the walls closing in. That evening, our doorbell rang at 8:30 p.m. Alex was doing homework at the kitchen table when I answered the door to find Miller himself standing on our porch, holding a folder. "Mrs. Davies," he said with a practiced smile, "Alex left an important playbook at school. I thought I'd drop it by since it's crucial for our upcoming game." "Thank you, but you can leave it with me," I said, not moving from the doorway. His smile faltered. "I'd really like to explain the plays to Alex directly. They're quite complex." "That won't be necessary." We stared at each other for a long moment, his mask slipping just enough for me to see the calculation in his eyes. Then he handed me the folder. "Of course, please make sure Alex understands the importance of studying his plays. His future in basketball depends on his dedication." No, the threat was clear. After he left, I found a note tucked inside the folder. Alex's scholarship opportunities depend on his continued excellence in all areas. Some mistakes can't be undone. Alex read it and burst into tears. See, I told you. He's going to ruin everything. You're making it worse. Baby, he's the one who... I knew what I was doing, he screamed. I'm not a little kid, and now you're destroying my whole future. He ran to his room and slammed the door. I stood in the hallway, shaking. He had manipulated Alex so completely that he believed he was complicit, that he was equally responsible. The recording app showed he'd already texted Miller an apology for my behavior. I stared at my phone screen, watching Alex's apology text to Miller appear in the monitoring app. My hands trembled as I read his immediate response. Your mother doesn't understand us. Meet me tomorrow morning before school. We need to discuss your future. Alex's reply came within seconds. Okay, I couldn't let this happen. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. and positioned myself in the kitchen where I could see Alex's movements. At 6:30 a.m., he crept downstairs, fully dressed in his basketball gear. I pretended to be making coffee. You're up early, I said casually. He froze. Just wanted to get to school early, work on some drills. I'll drive you. No. The panic in his voice confirmed my suspicions. I mean, I'm fine walking. It's too early and too dark. I'm driving you. The car ride was silent. Alex stared out the window, his leg bouncing nervously. When we pulled up to school, I saw Miller's car already in the parking lot. Alex practically jumped out before I'd fully stopped. Alex, wait! But he was already hurrying toward the building. I parked and followed, my volunteer badge ready. The halls were mostly empty this early. I heard voices from Miller's office and positioned myself outside, pretending to organize papers from my volunteer folder. Through the cracked door, I heard Miller's voice, low and urgent. Your mother is becoming a problem. If she keeps interfering, I'll have no choice but to fail you this semester. You know what that means for your transcript. I know, Alex whispered. I'm sorry. I'll talk to her. Talk isn't enough anymore. I need you to delete our emails. All of them. Today, my phone buzzed. The recording app was capturing everything. I forced myself to walk away before Miller discovered me. In the main office, I busied myself with filing while my mind raced. He was escalating, trying to destroy evidence. That afternoon, I watched Alex during lunch through the cafeteria windows. He sat alone, picking at his food. Sam approached several times, but Alex waved him away. The isolation tactic, classic predator behavior. I'd seen it in every documentary we'd watched together. When Alex came home, he went straight to his laptop. Through the monitoring software I'd installed weeks ago, I watched him access the secret email account. My heart sank as he began deleting messages. But what he didn't know was that I'd already backed up everything to multiple cloud services, including ones that preserve deleted content. How was school? I asked, entering his room. He slammed the laptop shut. Fine. Alex, we need to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. He stood up, clutching his laptop. You're ruining my life. Coach Miller is the only teacher who believes in me, and you're destroying that. He's manipulating you, sweetheart. What he's doing isn't normal or okay. You don't understand anything. He pushed past me, heading for the bathroom. I heard the lock click. 20 minutes later, he emerged, pale and shaky. The morning sickness was getting worse. I'd made another doctor's appointment for tomorrow, this time with an OB/GYN who specialized in young patients. Dr. Vance had recommended her, someone outside Miller's sphere of influence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the recording app, watching for new messages. Around 2 a.m., one appeared from the burner number. You did well today. Remember, our secret keeps you special. Delete this. Alex deleted it immediately, but I had the screenshot. The next morning, I told Alex we had a doctor's appointment. He protested, but I insisted. Dr. Evelyn Reed was gentle and professional, confirming the pregnancy was approximately 6 weeks along. She discussed options carefully, emphasizing that Alex had choices and time to decide. Alex sat silent through it all, arms wrapped around his middle. In the parking lot afterward, Alex finally spoke. He said if I told anyone, he'd make sure I never got into any advanced programs. He said he'd tell everyone I seduced him, that I threw myself at him. I pulled him into a hug. None of this is your fault, Alex. None of it. But I did throw myself at him, he sobbed. I wore the clothes he bought. I met him during his free periods. I sent him pictures. You're 14, Alex. He's an adult in a position of power. This is on him, not you. We sat in the car for an hour while Alex cried. He told me about the gradual progression, how it started with compliments about his talent, then special attention, then gifts, then requests for private sessions just for him, then meetings in empty classrooms. How Miller told him he was mature enough to handle an adult relationship, that age was just a number when souls connected. I recorded it all on my phone with Alex's permission. Evidence. Always evidence. When we got home, Mr. Henderson was waiting on his porch with Sam. We need to talk, he said urgently. Sam saw something today. Inside, Sam twisted his hands nervously. Coach Miller had another boy in his office during lunch, a 7th grader. He was giving him a gift box, just like the ones he used to give Alex. My blood ran cold. He was already grooming his next victim. His name's Liam, Sam continued. He's been bragging about how Coach Miller thinks he's special. Alex went rigid beside me. He said I was the only one, he whispered. Mr. Henderson and I exchanged glances. This was bigger than just Alex. How many boys had there been? How many would there be? We need to warn his parents, Mr. Henderson said. They won't believe us, I replied. Not without proof. And if Miller finds out we're talking to other families, he's already suspicious. Today he asked me if I'd been talking to anyone about us, Alex said quietly. He said he has friends who tell him things. The next few days were a careful dance. I continued volunteering, watching Miller's movements. Mr. Henderson documented everything Sam observed. Alex went to school, attended his class, and pretended everything was normal while the recording app captured every interaction. Then, Thursday happened. I was filing papers in the main office when the principal's secretary asked me to deliver something to the gym wing. As I walked down the empty hallway, I heard voices from Miller's office. The door was slightly ajar. "You're very special, Liam. Not many students have your potential." I recognized Miller's voice immediately. I peered through the crack and saw him sitting too close to a young boy on his office chair, his hand on his shoulder. Liam looked uncomfortable, but was trying to smile. I raised my phone and started recording video through the crack. Miller was showing him something on his phone, photos of a new gaming console, just like he'd done with Alex. Liam shifted away slightly, but Miller moved closer. "This could be yours if you're willing to work for it. Private coaching sessions, just you and me." My hands shook as I recorded. This was evidence of pattern behavior, exactly what we needed. I backed away quietly and hurried to the bathroom, where I immediately uploaded the video to multiple cloud services. That afternoon, Alex came home in tears. He knows something's wrong. He kept staring at me during class, and afterward, he told me I seemed distant. He wants to meet tomorrow during his free period to reconnect. "You're not going," I said firmly. "If I don't, he'll fail me. He already gave me a D on my last essay, and it was perfect. I worked on it for hours." I looked at the essay. He was right. It was excellent work. He'd marked it down for lacking depth and failure to grasp core concepts, complete fabrications designed to control him. That night, I made a decision. I called Mr. Henderson. "We need more parents. If it's just us, they can dismiss us as hysterical. But if multiple families come forward..." Sam mentioned that his friend Chris said Miller made him uncomfortable last year. Maybe his parents would talk to us. We spent the weekend carefully reaching out. 3 more families agreed to meet with us. 2 had sons who'd received gifts and special attention from Miller. 1 had already transferred his son to another school because of weird vibes from him. Monday morning, Alex woke up violently ill. The morning sickness was getting worse, and the stress wasn't helping. I kept him home, which triggered another barrage of texts from Miller's burner phone. "Your absence is noted. This will affect your grade. Ignoring me is childish, Alex. I expected better from you. You have until end of day to respond, or I'll have to take formal action." The threats escalated throughout the day. By evening, he'd sent a formal email to my account, copying the principal, expressing concern about Alex's sudden behavioral changes and declining athletic performance. He suggested a parent-teacher conference to discuss his troubling trajectory. I responded professionally, agreeing to a conference but insisting it include the principal and guidance counselor. Miller immediately backtracked, saying he preferred to handle things privately first. Tuesday, Alex returned to school. I watched from my volunteer post as he walked to his classroom. Through the window, I saw him gesture for Alex to approach his desk while other students filed in. He leaned close, speaking quietly. Alex nodded mechanically and returned to his seat. The recording app later showed Miller told him, "Your mother's making things difficult. If she requests that conference with administration, I'll have to share some concerns about your behavior. The photos you sent me, for instance, the administration takes a dim view of students who pursue teachers. The victim blaming made me sick, but it also made me more determined. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. The school nurse called me. Mrs. Davies, Alex collapsed in gym class. We've called an ambulance." I raced to the hospital, my heart pounding. Alex was conscious but pale, hooked up to IV fluids. The doctor explained he was dehydrated and showing signs of severe stress. They ran blood tests, which confirmed the pregnancy and showed concerning hormone levels. "He needs to avoid stress," the doctor said. "Whatever's going on, it's affecting his physical health." Alex squeezed my hand. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. I can't pretend everything's okay. I can't sit in his class knowing." He touched his stomach lightly. That's when I knew we couldn't wait any longer. Miller's psychological torture was literally making my son sick. But I also knew we needed one more piece of evidence, something undeniable that even his connections couldn't explain away. "Alex," I said carefully, "would you be willing to wear a wire?" He looked at me with frightened eyes. "What do you mean?" "Just a small recording device. If he says anything incriminating..." "He's too careful during school. He only says things when we're alone." "Then we create that opportunity, but safely, with me nearby." Alex was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, but how?" "I've been thinking about this. You'll ask to meet him at the Daily Grind coffee shop on Main Street. Public place, lots of witnesses. Tell him you need to talk about your grades, that you're worried about your future. I'll be at the next table. He won't like meeting in public, then he'll suggest an alternative. Either way, we'll have him on recording, making that suggestion." We went home that night with a plan. Alex texted Miller from his regular phone, the one he didn't know I was monitoring. "Can we talk? I'm really worried about my grades. Could we meet at the Daily Grind after school tomorrow?" His response was immediate. "Coffee shops are too public. Come to my classroom after school. My mom is picking me up right after school. The coffee shop is the only time I can meet." There was a long pause. Then, "Fine, 4 p.m. Come alone." I had Mr. Jock Henderson stationed in the coffee shop by 3:30 p.m., pretending to work on his laptop. I arrived at 3:45 p.m., sitting 2 tables away with my back to Alex's meeting spot. Alex walked in at exactly 4 p.m., wearing the small recording device I purchased online. Miller arrived 5 minutes late, scanning the shop carefully before sitting down. I could hear their conversation through the earpiece connected to Alex's wire. "This is highly inappropriate, Alex," he began. "Meeting like this could be misunderstood." "I'm just worried about my grades," Alex said, his voice shaky but determined. "You said my last essay was terrible, but I worked really hard on it. Your work has been declining since you started pulling away from me. You know what you need to do to fix this." "What do you mean?" I heard him sigh impatiently. "Don't play dumb, Alex. You were so eager before, so willing. Now you act like what we have is wrong. My mom says..." "Your mother is poisoning your mind. What we have is special. Age doesn't matter when 2 souls connect. You said you understood that." "I'm 14, Alex said quietly. "Age is just a number. You're mature for your age. That's why I chose you." My hands clenched into fists. He just admitted to choosing him, to pursuing him. "But the baby," Alex started. "What baby?" His voice turned sharp. "Alex, what are you talking about?" There was silence. I could hear Alex's rapid breathing through the wire. "Answer me," Miller demanded. "What baby?" "I'm pregnant," Alex whispered. I heard a chair scrape. Through my peripheral vision, I saw Miller lean across the table. "You're lying," he hissed. "You're trying to trap me." "I'm not lying. The doctor confirmed it." "Then you'll take care of it. I'll pay for it. No one needs to know." "I already told my mom." Miller's hand shot across the table, grabbing Alex's wrist. "You did what?" "Let go," Alex said, louder now. "You're hurting me. Do you have any idea what you've done? My career, my family." "Let go of him." I stood up, turning to face them. Miller released Alex's wrist, his face cycling through shock, rage, and calculation. Red marks were already forming on Alex's skin where he'd gripped him. "This is a setup," he said, standing. "You're trying to frame me." "Frame you for what?" I asked calmly. "For pursuing my 14-year-old son? For getting him pregnant? For threatening his grades if he didn't comply?" Other customers were staring now. Mr. Henderson had his phone out, recording everything. Miller noticed and took a step back. "I'll have your son expelled," he said quietly. "I'll make sure he never gets into any decent school. I'll ruin both of you." "Try it," I said. "We have everything. The emails, the texts, the gifts, the recordings, everything." His face went pale. Without another word, he turned and left the coffee shop. Alex collapsed against me, sobbing. I held him tight while Mr. Henderson called the police. Not the local department, but the state police. We'd bypassed Miller's brother entirely. The state police arrived within 30 minutes. 2 detectives in unmarked cars pulled up outside the coffee shop, their approach professional and methodical. Detective Sarah Chin introduced herself, while her partner, Detective Robert Lee, began taking statements from witnesses. I watched Miller's face drain of color through the window as he sat in his car, frantically typing on his phone. Alex trembled beside me as Detective Chin examined his wrist, photographing the bruises from multiple angles. The detective's expression remained neutral, but I caught the tightening around her eyes. She'd seen this before. "We'll need you both to come to the station," Detective Chin said quietly. "We have a special interview room for cases like this." At the state police headquarters, Alex underwent a forensic interview with a trained specialist while I provided all our documented evidence, the encrypted folders, screenshots, recordings, everything. Detective Lee methodically cataloged each piece, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he created the official record. "This is extensive documentation," he said, looking up from the screen. "You've done excellent work preserving evidence." The interview lasted 4 hours. Alex emerged exhausted, but somehow lighter, as if telling trained professionals had lifted a weight he'd been carrying. The specialist explained they had enough for an immediate arrest warrant. That night, Miller was arrested at his home. Mr. Henderson texted me a photo someone had posted on the neighborhood Facebook page. Miller being led out in handcuffs while his wife stood in the doorway, her face a mask of shock. The arrest happened at 9 p.m., ensuring maximum visibility to neighbors. The next morning, the school exploded with rumors. I kept Alex home while the investigation expanded. Detective Chen called to inform us that Miller's work computer had been seized along with his personal devices. They'd found deleted photos and messages to multiple students, spanning 3 years. Liam's parents called me that afternoon, their voices shaking. Their son had finally admitted Miller had been grooming him, showing him expensive electronics and asking for special private sessions. 2 more families came forward by evening. The pattern was always the same: compliments, gifts, requests for secrecy, gradual escalation. Miller's brother, the high-ranking school district official, attempted to intervene. He showed up at the state police headquarters, demanding to see the case files, claiming jurisdiction. Detective Chen calmly informed him he'd been recused due to conflict of interest. When he persisted, threatening to make calls to people who matter, she had security escort him out. The school board held an emergency meeting. Miller's wife sat silent in the back row while parents demanded answers. How had this gone unnoticed? Why hadn't the administration acted on concerns? The principal admitted several teachers had mentioned Miller's overly friendly behavior with male students, but without concrete evidence, they dismissed it as his enthusiastic coaching style. Alex's condition worsened over the following days. The stress triggered severe morning sickness and cramping. Dr. Reed monitored him closely, concerned about the viability given Alex's age and emotional state. I held Alex's hand through ultrasounds and blood draws, watching my son face consequences no 14-year-old should endure. The prosecutor, a woman named Emily Rodriguez who specialized in crimes against children, met with us to discuss the case. She explained the charges: sexual abuse of a minor using position of authority for sexual exploitation, witness intimidation, and evidence tampering. The deleted messages and photos had been recovered, showing a clear pattern of predatory behavior. He's looking at 15 to 20 years, she said, reviewing the evidence. The multiple victims in his attempt to destroy evidence work against him. Miller's attorney tried negotiating a plea deal, claiming his client suffered from depression and poor judgment. The prosecutor refused. With Alex's recorded confession and the physical evidence of assault at the coffee shop, they had an airtight case. 3 weeks later, Alex miscarried. The cramping started during breakfast, and by lunch, we were at the hospital. He gripped my hand as the doctor confirmed what we both knew was happening. Alex sobbed, not from sadness, but from a complex mix of relief and guilt that I helped him understand was completely normal. Your body knew what was best, Dr. Reed explained gently. This isn't uncommon in young pregnancies, especially under severe stress. The miscarriage became part of the criminal case, evidence of the physical trauma Miller had inflicted. Alex struggled with the publicity of his most private pain becoming legal documentation, but he understood its importance. More victims emerged during the investigation. A former student, now in college, contacted the prosecutor after seeing Miller's arrest online. He'd been too scared to report him 4 years ago when Miller had cornered him after school and touched him inappropriately. His testimony established a pattern going back to when Miller first started teaching. Miller's wife filed for divorce and moved in with her sister. She discovered a hidden folder on their shared home computer containing hundreds of photos of male students, some clearly taken without their knowledge during class. She turned everything over to prosecutors, her disgust overcoming any lingering loyalty. The trial date was set for 6 months out. Alex began therapy with a specialist in trauma and adolescent abuse. The sessions were hard. Alex had to confront how thoroughly Miller had manipulated him, how he weaponized his academic and athletic ambitions and need for approval. Some days he came home angry, other days in tears, but slowly he began to heal. I returned to work but took every Friday off for Alex's appointments and case meetings. My boss understood, having a son Alex's age himself. The school district placed Miller on unpaid leave and began implementing new oversight policies, including mandatory reporting training and clear guidelines about teacher-student interactions. Mr. Henderson became our closest ally. He attended every court hearing, took notes, and helped coordinate with other families. When Alex felt too overwhelmed to face school, Sam would bring him assignments and sit with him, their friendship evolving from typical teenage concerns to something deeper and more supportive. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Alex testified via closed-circuit video to avoid facing Miller directly. He spoke clearly about the grooming, the gifts, the escalating physical contact, and the assault that resulted in pregnancy. His voice shook, but never wavered from the truth. Miller took the stand in his own defense, claiming the relationship was consensual and that Alex had pursued him. The prosecutor systematically destroyed his testimony, presenting the emails where he called him special, the text threatening his grades, the recording where he admitted to choosing him. When confronted with evidence of multiple victims, he finally broke down. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Miller's face crumpled as the verdict was read. His brother sat in the back row, his school district badge a bitter irony in the courtroom. The judge ordered Miller remanded immediately, denying bail pending sentencing. At sentencing, Alex provided a victim impact statement. He spoke about the theft of his innocence, the manipulation of his trust, the physical and emotional trauma that would take years to heal. Other victims spoke too, a chorus of voices Miller had tried to silence. The judge sentenced Miller to 15 years in prison, with lifetime registration as a sex offender, no possibility of early release. The courtroom erupted in quiet sobs of relief from families who'd fought for justice. The school district settled out of court for enough to cover Alex's therapy and future educational needs. They implemented comprehensive policy changes and mandatory training for all staff. The principal retired early, his failure to protect students ending his career. Alex returned to school the following year at a different district. He struggled at first, flinching when male teachers called on him, but gradually found his confidence again. His grades recovered, and he joined the robotics club, finding his voice in designing and building, channeling his intelligence into creation. I trained as a court advocate for abuse victims, using our experience to help other families navigate the system. Working with local organizations, I helped 15 families in our first year, teaching them about evidence preservation and their rights. Alex sometimes spoke at training sessions, his story helping other parents recognize warning signs. Miller's brother resigned from his position in the school district after an investigation revealed he dismissed 3 previous complaints about his brother. The new district head implemented mandatory training on handling abuse cases and conflicts of interest. Alex graduated high school with honors, his college essay discussing resilience and the importance of speaking truth to power. He chose a school 3 states away, needing distance to fully establish his independence. I drove him to campus, both of us crying as we hugged goodbye, not from sadness, but from the triumph of reaching this milestone. Today, Alex studies computer science, planning to specialize in cybersecurity, protecting others from digital threats. He texts me daily, sharing small victories and occasional setbacks. In therapy, he learned that healing isn't linear, that some days are harder than others, but that survival itself is a form of victory. I keep a photo on my desk of Alex at graduation, his mortarboard slightly crooked, his smile genuine. Behind it sits a folder of thank you notes from families we've helped. Miller stole so much from my son, but he couldn't steal his future. That belongs to Alex alone.